On the eve of my birthday, a wedding dress quietly appeared in the wardrobe at home. My best friend also called and said, "I saw Ezekiel reserve a private room in the restaurant where you had your first date. Is he going to propose to you?" I was full of anticipation, but only got his words that he had to go on a business trip, and on his little childhood sweetheart's moments, finally wearing a wedding dress. Being proposed to by the person I once longed to marry. The accompanying picture is of the little childhood sweetheart wearing that wedding dress, and Ezekiel on one knee kissing her finger. This time, I didn't cry or make a fuss. I'm really tired. I broke up with him. When Ezekiel came home, he had a perfume smell on him. As I passed by him while carrying dishes, I subconsciously frowned. It was still the lavender fragrance that I hated the most. Seeing my reaction, Ezekiel reflexively explained, "It should be that I accidentally got it on when I went shopping in the store." He handed me the box in his hand. "Birthday present. I'll go change my clothes first so you won't be uncomfortable." To be fair, Ezekiel is a very considerate lover. For example, when I casually mentioned wanting to learn photography before, he bought this top-of-the-line camera set for beginners. I'm allergic to perfume, so Ezekiel never wears perfume. Even if he accidentally gets it on, he will deliberately stand in the wind outside until the smell almost dissipates before coming home. This is the first time. Well, actually it's not the first time. It's just that today the smell is extremely strong. Even the birthday present is tainted with the smell of lavender. I took the box and casually put it on the table, without waiting for Ezekiel. I ate first. Ezekiel came out soon. Seeing that I didn't wait for him, he was stunned for a moment. "Why didn't you wait for me? Are you angry?" "I didn't forget your birthday. It's just that I'm too busy with work and can't come back. I sent you a message that day." I continued to bury my head in eating my scrambled eggs with tomatoes and casually replied, "I understand. I'm not angry." Ezekiel was stunned for a moment and still wanted to say something. You. I looked up calmly. "What's wrong?" The words Ezekiel wanted to say didn't come out. After a while, he shook his head. "Nothing." He was probably surprised by my reaction, thinking that I should be like many times before, crying and making a fuss, hysterically questioning. When I found out that Ezekiel was cheating, I really wanted to rush up and make a big scene, making it so that everyone couldn't get off the stage. On the eve of my birthday, I found a wedding dress in the wardrobe at home. It was the one that I had praised many times as beautiful when I passed by the store under Ezekiel's company. My best friend also called and said, "I saw Ezekiel reserve a private room in the restaurant where you had your first date. Is he going to propose to you?" When I saw the wedding dress, my whole being was filled with joy. I thought it was Ezekiel's hint. Ezekiel once confessed his love to me in that restaurant. He said that in the future, he would propose in the restaurant, hold a wedding, and hold a full moon banquet for the baby. Witness every important moment of ours. The night before my birthday, Ezekiel said he had to go on a business trip. When he left, he took that wedding dress. At that time, I still thought Ezekiel was going to decorate in advance to give me a bigger surprise. On my birthday, I specially swapped shifts with my colleague and got up early to wash and groom. I put on beautiful makeup and carefully did a hairstyle that was most suitable for matching that wedding dress. Even my best friend King also came dressed up beautifully to accompany me, saying that she wanted to witness my happy moment. Unfortunately, I didn't wait for Ezekiel's invitation. That day, we waited from morning to noon. From noon to evening on an empty stomach. There was no message from Ezekiel on my phone. King asked someone and found out that Ezekiel had gone to the restaurant early in the morning. And the heroine had also arrived. Just not me. King cursed and pulled me to catch the adulterer. When we arrived, the proposal ceremony had already ended. I saw the moments that Ezekiel's little childhood sweetheart had just posted, finally wearing a wedding dress, being proposed to by the person I once longed to marry. The accompanying picture is of the little childhood sweetheart wearing that wedding dress, and Ezekiel on one knee kissing her finger. The people in the room hadn't left yet. They were reveling. Ezekiel's little childhood sweetheart, who was always on his lips, was wearing a wedding dress and scattering flowers with a bright smile. Ezekiel stood opposite her, his eyes never leaving the little childhood sweetheart for a moment. Full of indulgence. I also wanted to laugh. But tears fell in large drops. It turns out that a person with a girlfriend can still propose to another girl. It turns out that the wedding dress was never prepared for me from the beginning to the end. I thought about my preparations from the tips of my hair to the nails. And thought about my full of expectation waiting this day. I asked my best friend, King, do I look like a clown? That day, I held back the urge to go in and make a big fuss and stopped my best friend, who wanted to stand up for me. When I got home, looking at my dime and studded nails, I sat all night. Ezekiel served himself some rice. When he wanted to sit down and eat with me, he suddenly frowned. Why is it all tomatoes? Scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Beef briskets stewed with tomatoes. And tomatoes mixed with sugar. It was as if I wanted to make up for all the tomatoes I hadn't eaten before. I had been making only dishes with tomatoes for several days. Ezekiel can't eat tomatoes. At the most serious time. Just smelling the smell would make him feel nauseous and want to vomit. So since I've been with him, to be considerate of him, a big fan of tomatoes, haven't eaten tomatoes anymore. But now, I don't want to be considerate anymore. I answered Ezekiel's question. Because I like it. I packed up my own bowls and chopsticks. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to my room first. Ezekiel stopped me. Ava, did you forget that I just came back from a business trip? I looked back. So what? Ezekiel softened his tone and grabbed my sleeve and acted coquettously. Baby. This business trip. The cooperation didn't go well. I'm very tired and I need you. I know what Ezekiel means. Before, every time he came back from a business trip, I would be busy preparing the food he wanted to eat. Listening to him show off his achievements in negotiating with people during business trips. He talked animatedly. And I would chatter beside him, looking at him with admiring eyes like a little fangler. If the cooperation didn't go well, I would listen to him angrily scold the strange cooperation partner. When he had scolded almost enough, I would lean over and kiss him. He would roll around with me and ask me to comfort his wounded heart with physical compensation. But it is precisely because of these past sweetnesses that the lavender fragrance on Ezekiel that seems to be engraved in his bones is so disgusting. I pulled back my sleeve. Since you're tired, then rest early. I was sitting at my desk and had just opened my study materials when my phone rang. It was the department director. Ava, have you really thought it through about the advanced studies? No more changing your mind? I gave a self-deprecating smile. I really had become a fool for Ezekiel. I replied seriously, Director. I've considered it well. I definitely won't change my mind this time. The hospital had fought for several advanced study opportunities for young doctors. The director said that I had performed well and since I wasn't married and had few entanglements, I was the most suitable candidate. But I had refused for Ezekiel. Because Ezekiel said he wanted to marry me and have children. And said he didn't want to be too far away from me. Advanced studies would take a year or half a year. He couldn't bear to be separated from me. He also said that this kind of ordinary advanced study wouldn't have much benefit even if I went. So it was better not to go. Between Ezekiel and me, he has always been in the dominant position. Because Ezekiel had saved my life. In my junior year, I went out to buy things but on the street, I encountered a man who suddenly rushed out and called me his wife. He grabbed me and was about to take me to a car parked by the roadside. I struggled and shouted desperately, saying that I wasn't his wife and I didn't know this man at all. The man knelt on the ground and kowtowed to me, saying that he shouldn't have cheated and begged me to forgive him. When I wanted to run, I was stopped by an aunt who called me daughter-in-law. She pulled me and told me to vent my anger when I got home and not make a scene outside. They put on a good show together, making many passers-by really think that I was the daughter-in-law of this family. I held onto the car door and refused to get in no matter what. And no one came to help me. Just when I was almost in despair, Ezekiel appeared. It was Ezekiel who fought with the human traffickers and won time for the police to rescue. But Ezekiel was also beaten badly, with a black eye and a swollen face and covered in blood. He stayed in the hospital for more than half a month. From the police, I learned that those human traffickers committed crimes across provinces and had already abducted several young female college students like me. Some were sold to remote mountains to be wives for others, and some were sold abroad to be donors for living organs. I shuddered in fear when I heard this. I couldn't even imagine what would happen to me if I were really taken away. So I was more and more grateful to Ezekiel and went to the hospital more frequently, almost going to see him every day. I once asked Ezekiel why he saved me. At that time, Ezekiel said jokingly, probably because of youthful recklessness and wanting to be a hero. More importantly, I didn't want a good girl like you to fall into the hands of those scumbags. Otherwise, how sad would you be? At that time, Ezekiel probably wouldn't have thought that one day in the future, I would be so sad because of him. The director was extremely gratified. That's right. Young people, only when there is a road under their feet can there be light in their eyes. In our line of work, doing anything is better than falling in love and accumulating merit. I wiped away my tears and smiled. Yes, doing anything is better than entangling with a faithless man. The next day was an early shift. I got up early and was about to go to the hospital. When passing by the living room, I saw Ezekiel curled up on the sofa. There were also leftovers and a bottle of uncovered chili sauce on the dining table. Probably out of pique, he refused to eat dishes with tomatoes and mix his rice with chili sauce. Now he's suffering the consequences. I ignored him and walked straight out. But Ezekiel suddenly jumped up from the sofa and grabbed my wrist. He frowned tightly, due to stomach pain. His face was completely pale. Ava, don't you even ask about my stomach, okay? I asked along his words. How is your stomach? Probably because my indifference and perfunctoriness dissatisfied Ezekiel, and he became a bit more angry. Ava, what on earth are you fussing about? Just because I didn't accompany you on your birthday? I told you I was on a business trip and couldn't make it back. Birthdays can be celebrated every year. Just missing one time. Do you have to be so unforgiving and start a Cold War? I shook off his hand. But aren't we in a Cold War? Not long ago, I suddenly had an attack of appendicitis. I was so painful that my face was pale and I was covered in sweat. Instinctively, I called Ezekiel and wanted him to come back and take me to the hospital. But no matter how many calls I made and how many messages I sent, I couldn't get in touch with him. In the end, King came to find me and took me. I fainted from the pain before I even entered the hospital. When I woke up after the operation, it was already dark and there was still no news from Ezekiel. I was extremely worried. Despite my own discomfort, I contacted Ezekiel's friends and colleagues everywhere to ask about Ezekiel's whereabouts. I didn't sleep all night. It wasn't until dawn that I received a call from Ezekiel. He scolded me harshly. Ava, you know my job nature. I have to travel and be busy at any time. How can I have time to wait by the phone to answer your calls? Just an appendicitis. Do you have to make it known to everyone? That day, Ezekiel and I had a big fight on the phone. Even more ridiculously, I only found out later that Ezekiel didn't go to work at all that day. Instead, he went climbing with his impulsive little childhood sweetheart. The little childhood sweetheart sprained her ankle accidentally. The two of them, a man and a woman, spent the whole night on the mountain. We have been in a Cold War since that day. Until I saw the wedding dress in the closet, I thought it was a sign of Ezekiel's weakness. But unexpectedly, it just made me a joke again. Ezekiel blurted out, "You hold on to such a small matter for so long. Ava, when did you become so petty?" No, Ava, I didn't mean that. Perhaps realizing that he had said too much, Ezekiel quickly tried to make up for it. I gave a self-deprecating smile and changed to a calm tone. You're right. I am petty. So, Ezekiel. Let's be R. My words were interrupted by the sudden ringing of Ezekiel's cell phone. The note was sister, which was Ezekiel's little childhood sweetheart. First, there was a burst of coughing from the phone. And then Joy's sweet and glutinous voice. Brother. I have a fever. Can you come and accompany me? I feel so uncomfortable. I'm all alone and no one is with me. Will I get sick from the fever? What if something goes wrong? Ezekiel's face subconsciously showed a few more traces of worry. Why did you suddenly have a fever? Weren't you fine yesterday? Ezekiel had already taken his coat and walked towards the door while talking. You. Don't worry. I'll come right away. He kept saying comforting words. It wasn't until he had changed his shoes that he took the time to deal with me in his busy schedule. Ava. Yu has a high fever. I'm worried about her. I'll go and see her first. If you have anything, wait until I come back. His stomach didn't seem to hurt that much anymore. With a bang, the door closed. Once again, Ezekiel left me behind for Joy. On the way to the hospital, I received a text message from Ezekiel. Ava. Wife? Yu is a young girl, and it's not easy for her. Moreover, she came to this city for me. She can only turn to me for help. I really only regard her as a younger sister. Don't think too much. In the evening, I'll pick you up from work. It's this set of unchanging words again. This year there is exceptionally heavy rain. Once on a rainy day, the hospital received several emergency patients sent due to car accidents. I entered and exited the operating room and worked nonstop for a whole day. By the time the last operation ended, it was already 11 o'clock at night. I was exhausted. And I was caught in a heavy downpour that wouldn't stop. I couldn't get a taxi to go home. I called Ezekiel and asked him to pick me up. The phone rang several times before it was answered. He said, Yu is young and afraid of thunder. She can't sleep alone. I have to stay with her. He also said, Ava, you're such an adult. Can't you even go home by yourself? Do you really need someone to pick you up? So he couldn't see the pouring rain outside. His wife couldn't go home. He couldn't see that Joy is only 2 years younger than me and is also an adult in her 20s. He also forgot that when we first got together, just because of a light drizzle, he ran several kilometers to bring me an umbrella. I cleverly hid in someone else's store and wasn't wet at all. But because of looking for me, he was covered in spring rain. I seemed to have lost that Ezekiel who was passionate and deeply in love with me. I can only see an Ezekiel who can live in the same tent with his younger sister. An Ezekiel who sleeps with his younger sister on a rainy day. An Ezekiel who will propose to his younger sister and kiss her. I was silent for a long time, and finally sent the words I had brewed many times to him. Ezekiel. Let's break up. I was busy in the hospital until it got dark. I didn't wait for Ezekiel to pick me up. But I saw him at home. In Joy. Joy was wearing my pajamas. On the bed of Ezekiel and me. She had a fever-reducing patch on her forehead and was lying on Ezekiel's lap being coaxed to take medicine. Joy had light makeup on. Her face, whether because of a fever or something else, was flushed. Joy took a sip of the medicine and grabbed Ezekiel's sleeve and copaigusly said, Brother. It's so bitter. Ezekiel fed her a sour plum. You love beauty so much. Now you're suffering. Although it was a rebuke, the doting in his tone couldn't be hidden. I just stood at the door and watched. My heart ached densely. Ugh. The pain made my stomach act up too. I couldn't help but retch. The person I have loved wholeheartedly for 7 years. How can he be so disgusting? Hearing the noise, Ezekiel looked up at the door. Seeing that I was back, his expression was a bit panicked. Subconsciously, he moved Joy's head away from his lap. He got up and explained to me. Yu has a high fever. I've been taking care of her during the day and haven't had time to pick you up. I was afraid that you'd be unhappy because I spent the night alone with her. So I simply brought her home. This way it's more convenient to take care of her. Joy leaned on the bed and coughed twice and said to me, Yes. I have no strength. Just now. Brother was just giving me medicine. Sister, please don't be angry. Joy pretended to be weak in words. But the provocation in her eyes was not concealed at all. I finally couldn't hold it in and rushed into the bathroom and vomited. Ezekiel followed and asked me what was wrong. After vomiting, I couldn't help crying. When Ezekiel came to hug me, I raised my hand and slapped him. Ezekiel, why do you humiliate people like this? I took off the couple's ring that I had worn for 7 years and threw it in his face. Ezekiel, I'll say it formally again. We break up. I turned around to pack my luggage. Ezekiel chased after me and grabbed my wrist. Ava, I thought you were just being temperamental when I saw your text message in the morning, and didn't pay attention to you. Afraid that you'd be jealous. I've already brought the person right in front of you. Are you still making a fuss? I've endured you and given in to you. But you should also know when to stop. Joy also pretended to be strong and got out of bed to persuade me. Sister. Brother. Don't quarrel. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have gotten sick. Then you wouldn't quarrel because of me. I'll go. I'll go first. After taking 2 steps. Joy was so weak that she seemed to fall backward. Ezekiel subconsciously reached out and caught her. His face full of anger. Ava, have you become so narrow-minded that you have to pick on a patient? If you can't tolerate you, I'll take her away. Before leaving, he didn't forget to say to me, Ava, think about it carefully. Ezekiel has been gone for several days this time. I didn't bow my head and compromise like before. Go and apologize and coax him. Instead, I took this time to organize materials and pack my luggage. I booked a room in a hotel near the hospital. I took my commonly used things to the hotel. The rest were put at my best friend's house first. I'll pick them up when I come back from further studies. After everything was packed, I took a picture of the house and put it on the house selling website. Although Ezekiel and I haven't got married yet, we already have joint property. Before, our 2 families jointly bought this house. I want to get what I deserve. I didn't care where Ezekiel went, but I knew his whereabouts clearly. Joy showed off in her moments like a screen full every day how Ezekiel took care of her. Ezekiel took her to the amusement park, took her to watch the latest movie, took her to participate in their company's team building. He also went to climb Mount Tai that I've always wanted to go but never had the chance. Joy said in moments, when I was little, you said that no matter how long and dangerous the road is, you will carry me on your back. Now you've done it. The picture is of Joy lying on Ezekiel's back, with a bright smiling face. So the promise was made so early. But if so, why did you come and provoke me? I suddenly felt that I never really understood Ezekiel. I gave a thumbs up and then deleted Joy's WeChat. I put all my time into work and preparing materials. But I didn't expect Ezekiel to find me first. The second night after giving the thumbs up, Ezekiel's colleague called me and said he had a stomachache. Sister-in-law. Ezekiel had too much to drink during social events and has a stomachache. Come and pick him up and take him home. I refused. We've already broken up. Find someone else. The other party still wanted to say something, but I hung up the phone decisively. Before hanging up, it seemed that something fell to the ground and made a sound. I didn't pay attention. Finally, the weekend arrived. A mutual friend invited me to go shopping and I agreed. When passing by the restaurant where Ezekiel and I had our first date, I was pulled in. The restaurant was full of flowers and balloons. And there were many photos of Ezekiel and me. These photos recorded our long yet short 7 years. Ezekiel stood in the middle, wearing a suit and holding flowers, smiling at me. Ava. I just felt it was absurd. Extremely absurd. After Ezekiel had trampled on my true heart mercilessly, he thought that such means would make me soften. I turned around and wanted to escape. Someone quickly closed the door. Ezekiel also ran over to pull me and quickly knelt on one knee in front of me. Ava. I love you. Marry me. Almost all the people who came were Ezekiel's friends. And they all marry him. Marry him. I sneered. Ezekiel. I saw it that night. Ezekiel's face changed immediately. Obviously. He knew what I was talking about. Someone around him tried to make up for him. Sister-in-law. Don't be angry. That night Ezekiel was just taking wedding publicity photos with his sister. Yes. Yes. We were all there that day. It was just taking photos. There was nothing else. Sister-in-law. For that work incident before. Today all this is carefully arranged by Ezekiel. Just forgive him. This workaholic. Someone also brought Joy over and asked Joy to help explain. Sister. It was me who forced my brother to propose to me. It's because I love him so much. If you want to blame someone, blame me. It has nothing to do with him. Joy had red eyes and looked extremely pitiful. You see. Everyone knows. Only I am a fool. Finally. I couldn't help but snatch the flowers from Ezekiel's hand and throw them at his face. Ezekiel. You and the people around you are equally disgusting. I pushed the door and left. Ezekiel chased after me with that bunch of damaged flowers. Ava. Listen to my explanation. That was really just a misunderstanding. Passers-by all stopped to watch the excitement. I sped up to leave. But still wasn't faster than Ezekiel. Ezekiel blocked me in front. Looking pleading. Ava. There's really nothing between me and her. I just treat her as a younger sister and habitually take care of her a bit more. Believe me. We haven't done anything improper. I had a cold expression. It's not that it's called improper only when I see you two in bed with my own eyes. And no brother and sister would be like you two. Ezekiel. Do you know what this is called? This is called incest. No. Ezekiel shook his head in panic. Ava. Don't talk about me like that. We've been in a relationship for 7 years. I've only had you from the beginning to the end. I haven't cheated. I haven't done anything wrong to you. I really only treat you as a younger sister. Believe me. Okay? Ezekiel seemed afraid of something slipping away and reached out to grab me. I took 2 steps back. Ezekiel. We've been in a relationship for 7 years. So let's leave each other some final dignity. We're not married. Breaking up doesn't require your consent. I've already put our only joint property up for sale online. We'll go and sign the papers together later and split the money equally. I left in another direction. When Ezekiel was about to chase again, Joy rushed onto the road. I heard someone behind me shout, Ezekiel. Your sister is trying to commit suicide. Hurry up and stop her. Ezekiel made a choice and didn't chase after me again. But Ezekiel started to appear at the hospital gate every morning with a bouquet of flowers. Looking at me affectionately. My colleagues at the hospital only know that I have a boyfriend I've been in a relationship with for many years. But they've never seen him. At first. Ezekiel often came to pick me up. But he only waited outside and wouldn't appear in front of my colleagues. He said that there are many people in the hospital, and it's easy to cause gossip. He didn't want me to become the topic of idle talk among colleagues. Later, he became Joy's exclusive driver and hasn't picked me up for a long time. And now, I've become the topic of gossip for the whole hospital. I went forward and knocked the flowers out of Ezekiel's hand. Ezekiel, is this what you call loving me? My life has been turned upside down by you. Do you still want to make my work unpleasant? I already feel that I love the wrong person. Don't make me hate you. Ezekiel was so anxious that his eyes turned red. Ava, I didn't mean that. I just want you to know that I love you. If you mind Joy's existence, don't worry. I'll keep a distance from her from now on. Please. Don't leave me. Okay? I wasn't moved at all. I just found it ridiculous. I don't understand where this sud and deep affection from Ezekiel comes from. Obviously. No one forced him to do those things. They were all his own choices. Ezekiel, why bother? We break up. And then you can be with your good sister openly. If you want to propose, propose. If you want to climb a mountain, climb a mountain. No one will say you're cheating. No one will call her a mistress. Isn't that good? Ezekiel shook his head. No. It's not good at all. Ava. The only person I love is you. But I don't love you anymore. When I left. Ezekiel seemed so sad that he was about to cry. Ezekiel no longer came to the hospital to look for me. Instead, he started to wait for me outside the hotel every day and bring me meals. If I didn't take it, he would deliberately make things difficult for the buyers who came to see the house. Our house has a good location. It's not only a school district house, but also has complete supporting facilities such as business districts, parks, and subways around. It's very popular. But because of Ezekiel's deliberate difficulties, so far no buyer has entered the formal negotiation process. When I asked, Ezekiel said that he was reluctant to sell it, saying that there were too many memories of him and me in that house. Ezekiel even brought my parents to be his saviors and asked them to persuade me. Ava. I haven't seen Joy for many days. I've deleted all her contact information. Believe me. Look. Ezekiel handed me his phone, eager to prove that what he said was true. He knelt in front of my parents again and cried, saying that he knew he was wrong. Ava, please. Can you give me another chance? Please. My parents sighed. Ava. After all, you've been in a relationship for so many years. Why not give him another chance? Under Ezekiel's pleading, I relented. Okay. There wasn't much time left before I went for further studies. I wanted to solve this matter as soon as possible. I wanted to cut off all ties with him completely. Ezekiel's eyes sparkled with great hope. 2 conditions. Sell the house and accompany me to Mount Tai. Ezekiel didn't want to sell the house. I said, but Joy has entered the house. Laying on my bed. Even the air in this house makes me feel sick. Ezekiel knew he was in the wrong and didn't dare to object anymore. He could only comfort himself and say, okay. Then we'll buy a new one. Then he hurriedly confirmed, are there really only these 2 conditions? I nodded, yes. There are only these 2 conditions. Ezekiel actively showed houses to people and soon found a suitable buyer. It didn't take too long before I got the money that belonged to me. For the second condition, I chose 2 days before going for further studies. Before going to Mount Tai, I conveyed the news that I would soon make up with Ezekiel to Joy's parents indirectly through my parents. Joy, who had been neglected by Ezekiel for a while, couldn't hold back and took the initiative to find me. As soon as Joy came, she threw out a bunch of intimate photos of her and Ezekiel. Ava, Ezekiel loves me. We've done everything. Why are you still clinging to him? How despicable are you? I took pictures of each of the photos Joy gave. No matter what I do, I can't be as despicable as you. A mistress who eagerly offers herself to my boyfriend for free. Look. I just lost my temper a little. He completely cut off contact with you. What are you anyway? I smiled brightly. Joy looked extremely irritating. It's impossible. He said he likes me and has liked me since childhood. He said I was too young before. He didn't dare to be with me, so he chased you. If I weren't for years younger than him, there would be no you. You are a thief. You stole him. I will definitely take him back. Joy was emotionally agitated and repeatedly emphasized their childhood friendship. And I am the villain who snatched love by force. Joy looked at me as if I were an enemy. Really? Mistress. I'll be waiting for you. Tomorrow. We will go to Mount Tai. Ezekiel and I arrived at the foot of Mount Tai as promised. Only he didn't know that there was a little tail following us. Ezekiel was a bit uneasy and repeatedly confirmed. Ava, will you really forgive me after climbing Mount Tai? I nodded with a smile. Sure. Do you know how many times I've made travel plans? As long as we reach the top, I'll give you a chance. Ezekiel heaved a sigh of relief and ran forward with his head down. He stood at a high place and waved at me. Ava, come quickly. Here I come. Before setting off, I sent a photo of me kissing Ezekiel to a number. That was the last photo related to Ezekiel that I kept. When standing at the ticket office, Ezekiel's phone rang. Joy on the other end of the phone cried pitifully. Brother. I'm being followed. Several men are whistling at me behind me. Brother. Where are you? Come and save me. Okay? Ah! Stay away from me. If you come closer, I'll call the police. My brother is nearby and will come to save me soon. After Joy finished speaking, the voice on the other end stopped for a moment, and Ezekiel's worry showed on his face. Eva. It seems that Yu is in danger. Sorry. I have to find her. I pretended to be puzzled. It's so far away. If you buy a plane ticket and go back now, Joy will have already had an accident. Ezekiel explained guiltily. No. She has also come here. So. He knew there was a little tail following him. I thought I really never understood Ezekiel. When Ezekiel saw me purse my lower lip, he quickly said, I didn't contact her. She bought a ticket with my account number. I saw it accidentally. I mocked. But Ezekiel, this is your last chance. Joy's crying rang out again. Ezekiel was extremely anxious. Eva, you are a doctor. You should understand better than me how important a person's life is. Joy is in danger now. I can't stand by and do nothing. Don't worry. After I confirm her safety, I'll come after you. Ezekiel turned around and went down the mountain without any hesitation. After taking a few steps, Ezekiel suddenly shouted at me. Eva, wait for me. I will definitely come back to find you. I ignored him and went up the mountain in the opposite direction. After 6 hours, I reached the top of Mount Tai. There were many people gathered at the top. Some brought children. Some brought dogs. Some were taking pictures. And some were waving national flags. Only I was alone. But I felt extremely at ease. I realized that without Ezekiel, I could climb this high Mount Tai alone. This is the road under my feet. A road walked alone. I viewed all the strange peaks and rocks. I imagined the vast and magnificent scenery. And I shouted at the top of my lungs. At this moment, I completely bid farewell to my past relationship. I took the last cable car down the mountain, and then hurried to the airport to fly home. The next day, I flew to the city for further studies with my colleagues. Before boarding the plane, I sent all the intimate photos of Ezekiel and Joy to Joy. Ezekiel, you are so dirty. I don't want you anymore. Then, I deleted and blocked all of Ezekiel's contact information. Ezekiel was woken up by the WeChat notification tone. As soon as he opened his eyes, he found himself lying naked on the same bed with a woman. Joy affectionately rubbed against him and hugged him. Brother, did you like it last night? Ezekiel seemed to suddenly come to his senses and pushed the person away. Yesterday, he followed the address Joy sent and found that the so-called being followed was just a test of his true feelings. He was full of anger. But Joy hugged him and said, Brother, I knew that the person you love the most is me. You said when you were a child that you would marry me. You even swore in front of my parents. Ezekiel wanted to say that it was just a joke when he was a child, and couldn't be taken seriously. But Joy cried and threatened. Brother, if you don't stay with me today, I will really leave with those men. Do you really bear to let me be with other men? Ezekiel certainly couldn't bear it. That was the younger sister he had watched grow up. He got angry and scolded her. Joy softened again and said to him, I was just talking casually. Brother, the only person I love is you. Ezekiel retorted. I have always regarded you as my younger sister. The person I like is Eva. Joy pleaded. Brother, just one night. As long as you stay with me for one night, I will leave the city and never get in your way or disturb you again. Ezekiel somehow felt a sense of relief. He said sorry to Eva in his heart. He said that as long as it was just one night, after tonight, no one would come to destroy their relationship. But after a night of absurdity, Ezekiel felt an inexplicable sense of panic. He picked up the constantly ringing phone and saw Ava's message first. That screen full of photos. Ezekiel himself didn't know when he had kissed Joy so many times. And that message from Ava made Ezekiel even more afraid. He called and messaged Eva. only to find that all his contact methods had been blocked. Ezekiel got up to look for clothes. And his phone was still ringing nonstop. He picked up his phone again and found countless messages from colleagues and friends, all with a video attached. The moment he clicked on the video, Ezekiel's face turned ashen. Ava made a video out of his intimate photos with Joy. The photos of him proposing to Joy. And even the content of Joy's moments. Colleagues said that the video was sent to the company headquarters. Friends said that everyone he knew had a copy. Relatives said that his mother had fainted from anger. And on the internet, every platform had it. Ava didn't say a word. She only wrote the words scumbag Ezekiel and Mistress Joy on his and Joy's heads respectively. Ezekiel's hand holding the phone was trembling. When Joy also saw that video and was prompted by relatives and friends, she came crying to ask him what to do. For the first time, Ezekiel lost his temper at her. You ask me? Who should I ask? Why did you take these photos? Don't you feel ashamed to climb into the bed of a man who has a girlfriend? And you still have the nerve to take photos. Ezekiel spoke without thinking. He was extremely confused now. He was afraid that Ava would be really angry beyond redemption. And at the same time he resented Joy's stupidity. Why take photos? If there were no photos, Ava wouldn't have found out. Yes. He had saved Ava. Ava was soft-hearted and had loved him wholeheartedly for so many years. She would definitely forgive him. Find her. Go back and find Ava. Ezekiel completely ignored Joy, who was crying nonstop. He put on his clothes and ran away. He bought the earliest flight back. Ezekiel first went to the hotel. Only after asking did he know that Ava had checked out. He went to the hospital again. But he searched the entire hospital and still couldn't find anyone. He asked of his colleagues. Everyone looked at him with the eyes of looking at something dirty. No one was willing to tell him where Ava had gone. He belatedly realized that he and Ava had no relationship anymore. They had broken up completely. He sold the house that belonged to them with his own hands. And he lost Ava's last chance with his own hands. Ezekiel squatted at the entrance of the hospital and cried like a madman. Only then did he know that when a person wanted to leave, they could leave so resolutely and cleanly. Ezekiel went to Ava's hometown and knelt in front of the Shoa family's door for a long time. Ava's parents didn't tell him where Ava had gone. He went back to his own home and wanted to ask his parents for help. But because his mother had fainted from anger due to his affair, Ezekiel couldn't even enter his own home. He was fired by the company because of the scandal. Joy's days were also difficult. She was alienated by everyone around her. But Ezekiel couldn't care about her. He recalled the cities that Ava had once wanted to travel to and search one by one. He understood what is meant by vast territory and abundant resources. He understood what is meant by a vast sea of people. Ezekiel spent a lot of time but found nothing. It wasn't until a long time later that he learned that Ava had gone for further studies. From the time Ava decided to go for further studies to when she actually left, 2 months had passed, and he didn't know at all. Until one day a friend pushed him a ZHI answer. Why would a girl suddenly break up? Because she doesn't love anymore. Ezekiel remembered Ava saying that she didn't love him anymore. After the further studies ended, I returned to work at my original hospital. Not surprisingly, I saw Ezekiel. He was far from his previous high spirits. The whole person looked decadent and a mess. As if he had lost all vitality. When Ezekiel saw me, his face was full of joy. Ava, I miss you so much. I was indifferent. In the next second, he apologized with a dejected face again. Ava, I'm sorry. I didn't expect. I didn't want to listen to those past and useless explanations. Ezekiel, don't disturb me anymore. I don't want to become the gossip of my colleagues again. I don't want to have to explain every time why I still have connections with a scumbag. Ezekiel, you saved me. And I loved you. Don't make me feel that the person I once liked is good for nothing. Ezekiel was very hurt and tears fell on the spot. The teardrops were even bigger than when he had called me melodramatic. He cried loudly. Full of pain. I'm sorry. Ava. I'm sorry. I don't know why it has become like this. It doesn't matter if you don't forgive me now. I will try to compensate you. I won't break my promise this time. No need. Ezekiel asked again. Ava, what can I do to make you a little happier? Can I enjoy torture each other? I didn't speak. But Ezekiel thought I had. Not long after, I heard the news of their marriage. The wedding was not peaceful from the beginning. Ezekiel said Joy was a mistress who climbed into bed. Joy called Ezekiel a cheating scumbag. The two insisted on being together. It is said that their days were chaotic. The last time I heard news about these two people was in the news. The news said that a couple had an argument while driving and both crashed into a tree and died. And at that time, I was thinking that I had saved another life. I am really virtuous and will surely be wealthy and honored.